BBC CWR. And how about this? People in Coventry could be set to become published writers. A really incredible project was sort of undertaken during lockdown as a way of coping with lockdown. Their experiences were put down on paper, and now there's a bit of a fundraiser going on to try to get 117 poems and stories published in a book called Yesterday's Diary, an anthology of Coventry in lockdown. Cassidy is a local author who ran the Coventry Couch Potato Writing Challenge over the summer and has been choosing which entries to add to the book. Cathy, hello.
Hi, Lorna.
How are you?
Well, good, thank you. Yeah, it's great to see the project nearly ready to be published. It's fab.
Oh, fantastic. Also with you, we have Mary Courtney from Sitting Rooms, a culture group that was set up at the beginning of the pandemic. Mary, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm grand. I'm very excited about this project, so very, very happy that you're covering it.
Oh, well, we're delighted to find out more about it. So, Mary, how did this idea come into being? How have you been involved?
Well, Sitting Rooms of Culture is all about community and encouraging creativity in Coventry and the surrounding area. And we thought during lockdown it would be a wonderful thing to encourage people to write. And what better way to do it than to get our own international writing star, Cassidy, involved, because she's had millions of books published. And see, she would come on board to encourage people. And wonderful Cassidy agreed to do this. And so we launched the Coventry Couch Potato Challenge together. And I mean, Cathy will tell you about it. We had hundreds of submissions of writing and poetry, all inspired by the lockdown experience. So we've got things like unicorns coming to the rescue and rain in hairy legs and boredom, baking and dressing up for Joe Wicks. Incredible variety. 117 selected to be in this book, and it's by an award-winning publisher that's taken this on. And I did a count of all the people who have been involved. So it's not only the 117 people who are in this book, incredible variety of people from the city, but it's 203 people in total have helped. We've had an army of proofreaders because it's 256 pages. I mean,
Wow.
It's a proper book, quality. And so we've got all that book bursting with creativity, and we've had fundraisers helping to support it. So we're only 500 quid short of being able to give free copies to all the contributors. And if we raise more, we can send free copies to the libraries and residential homes and nursing homes and be more ambitious. But we are nearly there.
Cathy, I was looking after things for Vic Minette when this project first started, and we were speaking because your latest book was out, and we touched on the Couch Potato Challenge and we talked about it a little bit. Can you believe how it's turned out?
It's been so amazing to be involved in this. And, you know, I was kind of thinking, oh, yeah, it'd be lovely to get something back to my home city, place I grew up, place that made me, really. But I had no idea we would get quite so many entries. It started quite slowly, and then suddenly it just kind of took on a momentum of its own. You know, there were school kids, students, the elderly, mums and dads, people who were shielding, people living with disability, entries from frontline NHS and key workers, and people who haven't written perhaps for years to express themselves, or for decades, and people who'd never done any of that. And all of that mixed in with really accomplished local poets and very keen amateurs. So all of a sudden, you know, it's really an avalanche of work, and trying to choose the correct, you know, the best entries really to represent Coventry and to show the whole diversity of feeling that lockdown kind of brought about for all of us wherever we happen to be. And there was For me, that was the really important thing. It was seeing how Coventry people were reacting to the pandemic and to lockdown. And there was, poetry and stories that expressed themes like peace and contentment and anger and fear and grief and humour and fantasy and all sorts of other things. But the one thing that stood out for me was hope. Hope was a theme that ran through so many of those entries, and that's what's going to make this book so amazing, I think. It's really ultimately a very uplifting read, and it shows what an amazing amount of talent is in Coventry people, just ordinary Coventry people who are trying to kind of express themselves and use writing as a way to make sense of the world around them. And obviously, in a time of pandemic, that really, really matters, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cathy, Mary, stay there for me. We'll chat some more about the book, about some of the stories that have been uncovered as a result of it here on BBC CWR, and how close you are to getting it actually published and out there, especially for those contributors who've been chosen to be a part of it. We'll do that after Tears for Fears on BBC CWR for a Wednesday afternoon. 20 minutes past 12 is the time. You're with Lorna Bailey through until 2. A very good afternoon. Cassidy, a local Coventry author who has been here on BBC CWR through lockdown 1. We were chatting, Cathy, about the release of your book Forever Phoenix, which was out, and also how you were sort of reading chapters of your book to help people through lockdown, something you're doing again through lockdown 2 via social media. But we also chatted a bit about the very start of this project. When you first got involved, what did you think it would be versus what it is?
I don't know if I had preconceptions, but I was imagining there would be a lot of I don't know, people who'd never written poetry or stories or prose really ever before. And instead, what we got was a really heartfelt collection of entries, people really tuning into their feelings and putting those feelings down on paper. And it felt so, it actually felt like such a privilege to read this. I honestly think that the things we've chosen, they're so powerful and so strong. And there are some real talents included. There are people already published who are clearly very accomplished and very brilliant at what they're doing. But there are also some new voices in there that I am certain will go on to great things later on, and that ranges from school children, because some of the schools across the city really did get engaged and involved with this, and also older people and people of all, from all backgrounds who've suddenly found that voice and also realised just how much writing can give back to you. When you're pouring your heart out onto paper, creating something, you actually get something back as well, which is amazing. I do think this book is something very special.
Mary, you're in the process, we just sort of touched on this at the start when we first talking about you, of raising enough money, crowdfunding it to get it published. You're pretty close to that. And that's going to be an important thing, isn't it, for everybody that's taken part in this, to actually have it published and have the copy in their hand?
By hook or by crook, this is going to happen. So, I think we started off on hope, and we've been buoyed by that. But it really is, just with a little bit more support. We've got a fundraiser link on the Sitting Rooms of Culture Facebook group. You don't actually have to be part of the group to actually have a look and find it. So if anyone wants to chip in, that would be greatly appreciated. And the other thing I wanted to mention is one of the things that is really, really lovely about this book, and this was Cathy's idea, was getting a short biography for each of the entrants.
Oh, okay.
So when you read those, you get a real picture of the variety of people in the city, and also how important people's pets are. I can't believe how many bossy cats and pet rats and little dogs and so on. People have like two lines to write about themselves, and so often their pets get a feature.
I am a cat owner or a pet owner or whatever. Yes, absolutely.
But there was one entry that sort of particularly tickled me by Elaine Wallace for her description of herself. And she said, born in County Camden, drank in the Holyhead, danced in the Parrot and Parson's Nose on the way home. If you know, you know.
You know. I love that. That's fantastic. And what have people sent you then? So we've kind of broad brushed this with poetry and writing, but are you getting a real insight by picking this up of what it was like to live through the pandemic for people of Coventry? Are you getting descriptive, intimate details of the pandemic through the eyes of Coventrians?
Very, very much so, Lorna. And goodness knows myself and Cathy will have read this over and over and over and over and over. So we're very familiar with the material. And, you know, there's just things like the importance of Joe Wicks and getting dressed up to do Joe Wicks, for example, like particular things like that. It was really quite sweet hearing how many of the children were missing their friends, you know, like school because of their friends. There was a lot of particulars, the quietness at the beginning of it, and the bird song and so on, and the possible implications in terms of us thinking a bit more about the environment. There were some people being quite philosophical, but then you had unicorns coming to the rescue. Do you know what I mean?
If only.
I know, it was such a mix. I know. If only the world could be saved by a unicorn. But yes, I suppose, like for me, it was just this incredible variety is a thing that came out, and also it just made me feel proud of all the creativity that's just under the carpet a lot of the time in a city. Yeah. And Lorna, there's so many people excited about being in a book.
Yeah,
you know,
well, you would be, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is that thing that kind of, we've all got a book in us, and if we haven't got a whole book in us, maybe we've got a bit of a book, and if you've contributed to that, and it sounds as though it's going to be a real shared experience. Some of the things that you've mentioned are shared and are known to all of us. We all experience different bits of lockdown. It sounds as though some of those shared experiences that even though we were apart, we all went through together, really come out in what you've managed to collate and put together. What's it called? It's Yesterday's Diary.
Yep, sorry. Go on, Cathy.
Yeah, it's Yesterday's Diary, and that title came from a prose entry by one of the entrants, Jill Yardley, and it just seemed like such a perfect title for the whole collection, really. I honestly, genuinely think it's a fantastic reflection of a city trying to come to terms with and cope with something we've never really been through before, a pandemic and so on, you know. And now that we're somehow in a second lockdown, I think it's actually almost a handbook for how to get through it. It should be on everybody's Christmas list. It's the perfect gift of hope in more ways than one, I think. I believe that you can pre-order it on the Sitting Rooms of Culture Facebook page as well.
Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about it. And lovely to have been able to speak to you, Cathy, at the very beginning, and now that you're at this point, and then hopefully we'll speak again when it's out there flying off the shelves, virtually or otherwise, or downloaded or however it will be, and that everybody that's taken part gets that copy. The crowdfunder is over on their Facebook page. If you go and if you search Sitting Rooms of Culture, you will end up there. If not, come to us, pick up the phone, call us, and we'll get you the details you need. 0800 75 65 200 is the number. Cathy, Cassidy, author Mary Courtney from City.